welcome to the After Death Red Carpet premiere. My name's Allie Barlow. I'm your host for tonight, and there's so much exciting stuff going on. I cannot wait for you guys to see this. So we just finished some awesome interviews with the people involved in the film. They're in there watching it right now, and then we're going to join in and see the Q&A that the audience members will get to ask the talent, the filmmakers, some questions. So we're going to watch that with them, and then we'll also see some reviews from people that just finished watching the film. I'm so excited for you guys to be a part of that with us. And then, as if all of that was not enough, we are going to watch a sneak peek of the movie later in the stream. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be really cool. So everyone's in the theater watching the movie. When can you watch it? Let me tell you. October 27th, it'll be in theaters, and you can actually get your tickets now. So go to angel.com/lifeafter, and if you put in your zip code and your theater comes up with a star, that means you get a discount. So right now, for a limited time, we have buy one, get one happening. Use code LIFEAFTER, and you'll get that BOGO deal. Limited time, so hop on now and get it today. You can also pay it forward so that other people can see the film that otherwise may not be able to. We have a special promotion going on right now that if you pay it forward $300, you'll be able to dedicate a message to a loved one, and their name will appear in the credits of the film on streaming, Blu-ray, and DVD. You'll also be able to get early access to the film once it's released in the Angel Studios app. So now we're going to hop back in time to our interview portion of the night. So Pastor Allie, take it away. We are here with Stephen Gray, the director of After Death. It is such a pleasure to meet you. Stephen, would you mind telling us kind of what inspired this film? How did it come to be?
So back in 2012, my brother-in-law was actually killed in a car wreck, and he was 36 years old, and that caused me to ask questions about, the reality of life after heaven, all that. I wasn't sure if I believed it at that time. I really kind of struggled with that. And so that's what kind of caused me to, hear about stories of people who clinically died, had these experiences, and came back. And I read something like 30 books, and I just felt like a chorus of all of these different people's stories, put together in a film, I think would be really powerful. And so that was kind of the beginnings of After Death.
That's incredible. And so did you read some of the books of the people that are in your film?
Yeah, I read all of them. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's so cool. And how did creating this film change you?
Yeah, so I've been making this film for about 6 years. I've been working on it, so a long time. But yeah, I think their stories is really kind of help with my faith. So back in 2012, I wasn't sure where I stood with the reality of heaven and all that. But I'm very secure in that now. My faith is it's very strong because of these stories, and so that's kind of caused me to read the Bible differently, think about God more and pray more. We ended up interviewing 14 different people who clinically died, anywhere between seconds to an hour and 45 minutes, and it's already miraculous that they came back, didn't have brain damage, and that they're here to talk about their experiences and the things that they saw and experienced. It had a profound impact on my life.
Wow, that's incredible. And what do you hope that people viewing this film will take away from it?
Yeah, so I learned, unfortunately, that life can be very fragile, and it can be short. We don't know how much time we have here. And so my hope is that people watch the film and that it becomes a beacon of hope, in this reality of heaven, that there is an afterlife. And then if we ask those questions about if there is an afterlife, what could that mean for my life here? My hope is that people reflect on their life and the time that we have here, what kind of difference can we make with our lives?
Well, and when I watched it, that's totally what I came away with, was just like, I remember sitting there with my husband and we were just like, wow, I feel so hopeful and peaceful in such a chaotic world. And also we just wanted to run around and tell everybody how much we loved them and hug everybody and just try to make the world a little better for people. So thank you for that. And is there anything else you'd like to share with people at home?
We're just so excited to release this with Angel Studios. It's going out to 2,200 screens across North America. We never really imagined that it would be, this big of a release with the film. But I think, this big of a question deserves, this many screens. And I'm really excited for, for the impact that this film's going to have. And I can't wait to hear more and more stories of what people think of the film.
Well, I agree. Thank you so much for joining me today. Guys, again, this is Stephen Gray, the director of After Death. You're amazing. Thank you so much. This is John Piper, one of our survivors. Thanks for being here tonight.
What a privilege.
Why did you decide to share your story?
I waited 15 years to write a book about it after the accident occurred when I was killed in a car crash because I didn't have the words for it, the story. But I reluctantly agreed to write the story, and then I wrote it so I wouldn't have to talk about it, and that did not go well. Or I guess you could say it went very well because it sold about 9 million copies. And then they wanted to make a movie out of it, in which they did in 2015. But we're trying to get people into heaven and help them have a better trip on the way. And that's what I've been doing now for over 20 years after the original book was released. So really it's about that. And this movie is about helping people to understand there is life after death. We're going to take our last breath here, and we're going to take our next breath somewhere else. And they have a choice, but they will have to make the choice. So we want people walking out of this film saying, I've got to figure out what I'm going to do. I need to be prepared for what happens next. I wasn't planning to die the day I died at 38, but I was ready when I did. And it's a question of being ready, being prepared. And we're really hoping and praying that this movie will do exactly that.
That's amazing. And I think that it will. I think that it's a super powerful film. Your story is very touching, and we really, really appreciate you being willing to share it with everybody.
My privilege, honor to do it. And here's the extra dimension on this. This is not just a bunch of people expressing their stories, what happened to them, and they are very powerful stories. These are scientists. These are doctors. These are people who have studied this for decades and have concluded that there is life after death, and you need to be ready for it. And so this is a different kind of film. This is a very powerful story, not only of personal experiences, but it's a story of real scientists who have come to the conclusion that there is life after death, and there is.
Thank you so much. You're amazing. Again, this is John Piper, one of our near-death experience survivors. Thank you so much. It was so good to meet you today. All right, guys, we're here with Dr. Jeffrey Long. Thank you so much for being here. We would love to know what was your fascination with this subject? What caused that?
Right. Near-death experiences are fascinating. I mean, how can you not be absolutely fascinated by wondering what lies beyond death's door? But here are near-death experiences by the thousands that I've investigated with a very clear and consistent answer that there is an afterlife, a wonderful afterlife, and that's for everyone.
That's amazing. It was really cool to hear what you had to say in this film. I really, really enjoyed watching that. And what do you hope that people get from this film when they watch it?
Okay. This film, After Death, is a masterpiece. What people, I hope, get from this film is the powerful evidence from the best source of evidence, that being people that had near-death experience, and certainly I'll be bringing up some of the science about near-death experience. But I think every open-minded person that sees this film is going to come away with that understanding, that conclusion that yes, near-death experiences are, in a word, real, along with their consistent message that there is life after death.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to meet you.
Such a pleasure.
Again, this is Dr. Jeffrey Long. All right, we are here with producer Jason Paymer. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So, how did you get involved in this film?
Steve sent my producing partner and I a pitch, a short film. And for all you aspiring filmmakers out there, send videos, send something we can watch. Steve did that, and it was beautifully done, so thoughtfully and tastefully done. And so we decided this is one of those rare opportunities to make a film that's for everybody. Usually you want to make something for a specific audience. This film just happens to be one that touches all of humanity. We've all touched loss and grief. And so I really do think this is for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. And how did working on this specific film change you?
You know, Dr. Mary Neal in our film talks about her life review and seeing the ripple of her life out 30 degrees. Not 30 total people, 30 degrees out. She only knew degrees 1 and 2. And so just it sort of revealed to her, and my takeaway was that every choice you make here matters. And if there is eternity, if there is an afterlife, then that should force the question of how now shall we then live. And it really does sort of make a difference into the way we should enter our day and exit our day here. And so for me, it just gives me an eternal perspective that changes the way I interact here.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That was a great answer.
It was really good. We got it on camera.
Really?
Here, wipe the tears. So what do you then hope that people watching this film will take away from it?
Listen, I think coming off of the last 3 years, it's been hectic and chaotic, and I think the level of anxiety globally is heightened. I know it is for me. And then what's going on in Israel right now, and just in general, the world is crying out. And I think this film enters that conversation, a moment of pain and despair, and says there's hope, and there's something bigger than all of us, and we can actually experience reunion one day on the other side. And so, yeah, I just hope this film is sort of on the other side of the door of grief and loss. It's a room of hope. And this film, I think, is that.
I agree. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to tell our viewers?
Hey, well, let's see. This is going to come out. I want to see you in theaters. This film was made to be experienced in theaters. It was made to be experienced sitting next to somebody. I mean, the creative in this, the orchestra that did The Revenant and the Halo, that's all true. But this film is meant to be experienced in a big room with a lot of people. You can only experience it one way. Get it in theaters.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason. We are here with Dr. Mary Neal. Thank you so much for joining us. This is such a pleasure.
Such a privilege.
Well, why is it that you decided to share your story with people?
Well, for 2 reasons. One is when I was sent back to my body, I was given a list of things I had to do, one of which was sharing my experience with other people. But in sharing that, and the real reason I do it is for several reasons. One is it gives hope to other people, hope that not only is there really life after death, but God is real and present and working in our lives today. And that's a wonderful, wonderful thing to recognize as truth. It also eliminates fear of death. Being here on earth is this incredible opportunity and privilege, but when we die, we go home. It's not a scary, frightening thing. It's a wonderful thing. But I also find that in sharing my experience with other people, it validates the experience of other people, and it gives them the courage to start talking about their own experiences.
I think that's awesome. And I feel like you have such a genuine feeling when you talk that I'm like, yes, I believe you. And I think it's incredible that people are going to get to hear your story and hear it from you. So thank you for being willing.
No, of course.
And what do you hope that people viewing this will get from it? Like, what message do you hope that people will take from it?
Well, more than anything, I of course want people to take away the idea of hope. But more importantly, I actually don't want them to believe what I have to say or what anyone else has to say. I really hope that people leave after death feeling challenged. Yeah. That maybe their own ideas about life and death aren't correct. Yeah. And I hope that they leave this film feeling like, I'm going to look into this a little bit more. And do their own research.
Right. And kind of learn for themselves.
Learn for themselves, because I think it's only when you look at your own life and you see God's presence in your own life that you then make this transformation to a faith and trust that God's promises are true. And I think that leads to living a joy-filled life that I think we're all meant to live.
Yeah, I agree with you. You're just so caring and kind, and I feel like people will feel that. And also, I love that you want them to research it for themselves so that they can truly feel that and know. And I think that this will help them start that journey. So, yeah.
I can only hope so.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. And thank you for being here. This is really cool to meet you. I saw you in the film and I was like, whoa, and now you're here. I'm like, okay, this is fine. So,
it's a privilege. Thank you, and thank you for what you're doing for everyone.
Absolutely. Well, have a good night, and we'll see you in the theater.
Thank you.
Okay. We're here with Neal Harmon, the CEO of Angel Studios. Neal, tell us a little bit about Angel Studios and why Angel Studios decided to be involved with this film.
Angel Studios' mission is to tell stories that amplify light. And our name reminds us of the people who make Angel Studios possible. Tens of thousands of angel investors who are all members of the Angel Guild. And these people get to decide what shows amplify light. And so every show that you ever see on Angel Studios, it's because all of you who've invested decided it should be there.
That's awesome. That's so incredible. And that's kind of unheard of, to let the audience choose what they want to see. That's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like rocket
know,
science,
right?
but it hasn't been done. And but we're grateful to the Angels, and they rated After Death really high, and high enough to take it to the theaters. And we're really excited about the response so far. We'll see how it goes this weekend.
That's awesome. And Neal, what message do you hope that people take from After Death?
For me, and I hope that other people have as good of an experience as I did, I found myself sitting long after the credits had passed, and I thought about my relationships. I thought about specific children. I thought about my relationship with my wife, Tricia, with siblings, neighbors, and how often do you get to go to the theaters and come away thinking about your relationships and what's most important to you in life? And that's what this film did for me.
It did the same for me. Me and my husband were sitting there just thinking about all the people we wanted to go hug and tell them that we loved, and it was just very hopeful. So I hope as well that all of you can feel what me and Neal felt from this film. So thank you. And thank you, Neal, for talking to me for a minute today. Is there anything else that you want to say to our friends at home?
Thank you. Thank you for being part of Angel Studios. And if you have the chance to join the Angel Guild, you get to help decide what comes after death. We'll see you there.
Thank you, Neal. Guys, weren't those interviews amazing? We have so much more in store for you tonight. I cannot wait. Don't forget about that sneak peek in a little bit. Stay tuned for that. And you can also go to angel.com/lifeafter to get your tickets to see the film today. You can also go to that same link to pay it forward for somebody else to be able to see it. And don't forget about that BOGO deal to get buy one, get one using code LIFEAFTER. Okay, so we've had some time with the creators and the talent on the red carpet, asked them some awesome questions, but they just finished watching the movie, so I think we should go in there and join them for the Q&A. Let's go.
This brought a thought to my mind, both his question and your response, Dr. Neal. So I think Stephen Gray, he hasn't been through one of these experiences, but lost someone close to him. And Jason and Stephen and Tyler were telling me earlier today at the Angel Studios headquarters under what conditions this film was made. And I wonder if they'd be willing to share just briefly about the conditions, why you chose to push forward with this film under those conditions, and what that might mean for others who are not filmmakers in choosing truth, in choosing to live a joyful life.
For me, I mean, I stayed with this project for over 6 years working on it. Because I really wanted to know, that answer to these really difficult questions, what happens after you die? Just because I wanted to know where my brother-in-law was, what did he experience, and am I going to see him again, And like Mary said, faith tested, going through trauma and all that and loss. If you didn't have that trust, I realized how shallow my faith was, because I lost it for a period of time, and these stories just kind of renewed that hope. I was going to say earlier to your question about in terms of love, and how do you get that? I think a lot of the people in the film would say, God is the source of love. Dale describes, when he's in heaven, he's seeing God is love, and he's light, and he's life. All of that is all wrapped together. But so the source is coming from God. And, so when Jesus tells Howard to go and love the people he's with, it's through the love that he receives from God that we're able to love others. Howard would, we didn't say this in the film, but, in our interview, Howard says, it turns out it's actually, one of the hardest, things for him to do, because, it's easy to love someone who might love you back. How do you love someone who hates you? How do you love someone who doesn't return that love back? And even the word love in English is, we only have one word for it, but you could say like, hey, I love this shoe, and I love my wife. Those are two very different things, but you're using the same word to describe it, right? English only has that one word. There's other languages that have multiple words, and I think in the original text in the Bible, the word that comes from the love that comes from God is unconditional. It's agape love, and so it's a different layer. It's unconditional, and that's not something we can really experience here on earth, because there's always like some motive, some selfish motive behind it, or selfish desire or thought or whatever. But that's not what these people are experiencing. It's unconditional love, which is beyond what we can experience here. So I think, we can love others through that love that we receive from God.
Awesome.
You guys said something about what was going on in the world as you were making this film.
Yeah, we received the investment in January of 2020, and the plan was to go make the movie. And in February of 2020, the world shut down, and a lot of these people were at.
You can't cover that.
Mics get turned off. It's spiritual warfare. So, there were physicians and higher education institutions, and nobody was traveling. No one wanted to travel, and nobody could travel for a long time. So we took a small crew around the U.S. for about a year and a half, and then finally we shot the reenactments at 20th Century Fox's old lot in Baja, Mexico, and found an amazing crew down there. But it was very, very difficult it's always hard to make something. It was that much more difficult to make it during COVID. And, then you add on the layer of, I think when you make meaningful things, or things that attempt to be meaningful, there's even more opposition to it. Angel Studios is no stranger to that. And I think that, it devastated some relationships that we've had. Close relationships did not survive the making of the film. We hope for redemption one day and reunion there, but it took a toll relationally and professionally. There's a lot of things. We took this film out and tried to get it set up in different places, and for various reasons that are not completely unreasonable, we couldn't find a home for it. And people said it's a doc, and I like this guy's non-doc framing. That's how we look at it. But people just saw it as a certain thing. And I think, the Gilded Angel saw something else in it. And when you read that, there's tens of thousands of comments right now online just on some of the trailers, and every third comment, someone's saying, my uncle, my father, my mom had. It's a very, very widespread human experience. Now, not all of us will have NDEs, and to Mary's story of her life review, she saw her ripple effect out 30 degrees. That's like mind-blowing. It's not 30 total people. It's like Neal has a brother, who has a cousin, who has a son, who has a father, who has a friend, who has a cousin, I'm not going to do all 30. But the point is, that goes she knew degrees 1 and 2, but not beyond that. So our lives matter, the decisions we make matter. When you get up from this theater and you walk down this hallway, you see the people that check people in, and you look at them and thank them, and you have no idea the small motion or the small act that has a ripple effect into eternity. And if eternity is real and the afterlife is real, how now shall we then live? It should impact the way that we get up at this theater and we exit it, and the way we enter our day tomorrow and we go into the office and we face the business partner that slighted us, or we face the boss that undermined us, or we face the list goes on and on. We're all going to have 1,000 examples over the next week of how we enter these moments and how do we let love reign. And I think this is what the film, left me with. I haven't had an NDE, but the stories in the film radically wrecked me and changed the way, hopefully, that I'm going to live the rest of my days.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We've got 3 more questions for you guys before we wrap up tonight. So we're going to start over here.
I'd love to know kind of your routine, if you want to call it that, of keeping close to that love that you felt in heaven. How do you keep that here when you have earthly experiences just drag you down? And how do you connect with your Heavenly Father and your Savior daily? And that's my question.
Well, I was on my way to church when this happened. I had a stack of sermons on the seat beside me. I was getting ready to go preach them. And so that was what I was called to do before I get hit by a truck. And when I came back, I was really hurt in all the ways you could be hurt. Not just physically, and it was bad. It hasn't diminished with time. I was really confused as to why, I had to come back to this. And as the weeks drifted into months in the hospital bed, I really got depressed. Number one, because I'd seen heaven and lost it, but I hadn't told anybody about it. So they thought I was depressed because of my physical condition. And that probably had something to do with it. But most of the depression revolved around losing heaven and keeping it to myself. And some friends of mine who know me pretty well have kind of drugged that out of me. And their response to talking about it was, why do you think God let you see this if you were supposed to keep it a secret? I offered some lame excuses, and they didn't like any of them. So they kept after me. So eventually, 15 years after the accident, I decided to write a book about it, figuring if I wrote the book, I wouldn't have to talk about it. And that went south immediately. The book sold 9 million copies. So, and then they made a movie about it, as if we needed more to talk about. And then here we are again. So the reality of it is people want to know if heaven is real. They really want to know that. But they also want to know, how do you live on the way? And I think that's just as important. It is certainly for us who remain alive. And my motivation is to get people in and to help them have a better trip on the way. Yes, really bad things happen to good people, and bad things happen to all people. So we really have to focus on what we're here for. What is our reason, as the French say, raison d'etre. What is our reason for being? I think we were created by God to love God and to serve God. And so I think I don't think anyone is an accident. When I was growing up, I used to hear people say, well, he was an accident. You know what? I don't think there are any accidents. I think we're born on purpose with a purpose. I think the reason people don't know that purpose or don't seem to is because they haven't surrendered to it in advance. Because that's a lack of trust. That's a lack of faith. We're saying, I want to know what you made me to do, but I just trot it out here and I'll take a look at it and see if I like it or not. And if I don't, then I'll do something else. That's not the way God operates. I think we know what we're supposed to do when we're doing it, and God affirms it. And we trust him to affirm it because we found out what we were made to do. I was made to do this. And so when I do it, I don't have to work hard at just being in the middle of it. Sometimes I have to work hard at getting to where I'm supposed to be. That's getting more difficult because, I got run over by a truck. So that's the hard part. The physical part has become the hard part. The emotional part, the spiritual part, not the hard part. I can't wait to do it. I can't wait to meet another person and be in another place and tell them about Jesus and help them to understand that he loves them and that that heaven is a real place and they could be with him eternally. I mean, I can't wait to do that. And so I will do that as long. I was thinking one of the other questions. There was a great preacher from Chicago named Dwight L. Moody, and he used to say, one of these days you'll pick up the Chicago Tribune and you'll see on the front page, probably because he was very famous, that I have died, an obituary. When you're reading that obituary, I will be more alive than I ever was when I was in Chicago. And that's the way it works. So serve here, love God, and be ready for what happens next. And that's what motivates me.
So to answer that question, I'm much more pragmatic.
I know you are. I think that's good.
And here's what I would tell you. When you're stuck in traffic and you're getting irritated, you have to sit back and say, do I trust that God has a plan for my life that's one of beauty? And in every situation, it's that same question. Do I trust? If you're stuck in traffic and you're about to miss your flight, do you trust that missing that flight, if you do, is something that's planned for you and beauty will come of it?
Another divine appointment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, again and again and again, I have to remind myself of trust. A few years ago, I had a thyroidectomy, and the guy injured the nerve to my vocal cord. I couldn't speak at all. I'm a surgeon. I have to talk to patients all day. I do things like this. I speak. At that point in time, I couldn't speak to my kids on the telephone. I mean, for a moment, I will fully admit that I could not believe my life had changed so radically, and I was going, but my life is over. My life as I knew it was over. And then, of course, that little thought balloon off to the side that I always have said, oh, really? Oh, big talk about trust. So do you trust or do you not trust? And I said, well, yeah, actually, I do trust. And if I can no longer speak, I will find a different way to glorify God. And obviously, I have my voice back, sort of. But I think that in all those situations, you have to fall back on those promises and trusting those promises. I don't love everyone I meet. I mean, let's be reasonable here. So I meet Don for the first time and I say, you know what? Ooh, I don't like beards. Like I don't like anything about you. So what do? I say, okay, well, I know that God loves Don Piper just as intensely as I know that I am loved. So I said, well, I don't know why, but I'm going to find something about you that I like. And so I might say, well, I like the color. That's an interesting color jacket. I'll find anything about that person that I can appreciate. I still may not like it, but I can appreciate it. Mm-hmm. And what I have discovered is that where love is present, destructive emotion like dislike or irritation can't exist. It's like this room. If you turn the lights off, it will be dark. We can talk about darkness, but we can't measure it. It doesn't exist. Darkness is only the absence of light. I absolutely believe that all of those destructive emotions are nothing more than the absence of love. So if I can look at Don and say, you know what, I really don't like you, but okay, I really like the way the pattern of your jacket is. All of a sudden, I feel love, some form of love, and unfortunately in English, we have one word, but then that sense of appreciation and love starts to grow, and all of a sudden, I find other things, and I think, actually, you're a really good guy. And it's those sorts of things that you can do when you're in traffic. When you're in traffic and someone cuts you off, you can remind yourself that if you actually knew that the person who's cutting you off was on their way to the emergency room because their kid was dying, you wouldn't feel irritation or anger. You would feel incredible empathy and compassion and all of those forms of love. So those are ways very pragmatically that you can try to retain that love of God that you know is present in yourself and in the world, and focus on that.
Thanks for joining us for that Q&A. It was super fun to listen to the audience questions and just the conversation that came about because of the film. As people were leaving, we had some people stop and want to tell us about their insights, their feelings towards the film. So let's take a look at some of those.
As a member of, a religion myself, I really loved that this movie really dove into so many different aspects of religion, and it didn't have to be, I'm not part of the religion that was in the film, but I still I felt God's love. And I remember actually praying during the middle of this movie and just asking God to confirm if what was happening on this film was real, and I was almost immediately blasted with confirmation that this is real, that he is real, that Jesus is real, and that heaven and the afterlife is real, and it never stops, it never ends. It was remarkable, and I remember I actually texted my mom like 2 minutes after it ended, and I said, please go see this movie with Dad and the boys. It's incredible. So good.
I thought it was very powerful. It was very thought-provoking. I thought they did a really good job of juggling all the different elements of what was going on and kind of staggering things and kind of waiting to the end to piece it all together. I don't know, it just leaves you with a lot to think about, definitely in a positive way. I think it's great for pretty much any audience, anybody it could be specifically for people struggling with thoughts about, their existence or what's purpose in this life, people that have experienced loss. But really, I think it's just pretty much universally applicable to anybody that come and see this movie and get, a good feeling from it. So
I thought this was an exceptional film. It was really cool to hear all the stories and the science behind what happens after we die. I felt a lot of confirmations, and I left feeling like I wanted to love people more. It's kind of crazy. You go to this movie that's all about how you're going to die and like what happens when you're gone, but it helped me think about what I want to do now, while I'm still alive, to make the most of the life that I've been given, and so I think that was a really big takeaway for me. And it was just crazy awesome to think about how it's real because of all the experiences that people are having, and so those are some of my reactions to the film. I would recommend After Death to anyone who's a human who's gonna die. I feel like this is a film that just is so enlightening about the human experience, and I would recommend it to anybody. I think it's definitely a movie that will be appreciated more by people who are older. I don't know if a younger audience, like little kids, are going to understand everything that's going on or the complexity, but I feel like if you're an adult, you're for sure going to get something meaningful out of this movie.
Every single person on this planet should go see this movie because it just brings to fruition who we are, why we're here, where we're going. And I know that our Heavenly Father wants us to, like I said earlier, help every person we meet feel known and loved. That is my mission. That's why I'm here.
I enjoyed After Death. I really feel like it's an important film to be a comfort to those of us who are in grief over loved ones. I have several friends who have lost loved ones in their families, one a child, others lost family members, and it's just such an encouragement and a hope to be reminded that heaven is real, and so encouraging to hear from people who've had a peek at the other side. I would recommend this film to everyone, because no matter whether you've lost someone in your life and you're trying to deal with that, or if you just need a message of encouragement and hope to love one another, and that God is love and He can help us love one another every day to make a difference in the world, that's what matters to me.
Guys, this has been an incredible night. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget that you can see After Death in theaters on October 27th. Go on to angel.com/lifeafter, and don't forget about the BOGO deal, where you can get buy one, get one free using code LIFEAFTER. The time has come, the moment you've all been waiting for. We are going to show you the clip from the movie. Please enjoy that, and thank you again for joining me tonight. It has been a pleasure to be here with you. Have a good night.
Kayaking is both challenging and exhilarating. We began to go down the river. We went over the first couple of drops. It was very high flow, very high current, strong current. There was another client that sort of bobbled her way past me and ended up sideways at the entrance to the chute. So my only option was to veer over and go over the main part of the waterfall. And the front end of my boat became pinned. And the boat and I were then completely submerged under 8 to 10 feet of water. I recognized that I was probably going to drown. I would think about the fact that I must be dead, but I didn't feel dead. I felt more alive than I've ever felt.